How's the sentiment been amongst sort of your power users?
Sentiment is extremely high about OpenSea right now.
You've always been in the gaming side. What brought you to crypto?
If you can't tell from my background, I'm a nerdy collector of things, now both digital and physical. I think reducing friction and reducing barriers is really important to encourage adoption. At OpenSea, we've been taking major steps to doing that. And so, you go to OpenSea today and you can transact seamlessly across 22 chains. OS Intelligence is going to be an agent-based trading partner that can sit alongside you in OS Mobile and on OS Desktop and can really connect to the blockchain and give you much better data to help you make much better decisions. This is our love letter to the artists and the creators and the founders that have helped build the space that we serve.
Are you able to give a timeline on OpenSea Intelligence?
So,
hello, and welcome to another video interview with CCN. With me, Eddie Mitchell. Today I'm speaking with Adam Hollander, the Chief Marketing Officer at one of the top, if not the top, NFT marketplaces in the world, OpenSea. Hello and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me again. You were recently appointed the CMO at OpenSea, but that's quite very recently. That was like May this year, I think. So could you tell us what you've been doing before OpenSea and how you got there?
Sure. So, I don't really know what to call myself anymore, but I tend to use the term serial entrepreneur when people ask me what I've done across the course of my career. I've built and sold a number of companies. Most notably, I created a company called Fantasy Sales Team that I sold to Microsoft back in the 2015 area. After that, I spent a few years at Microsoft as their director of gamification. After that, I was the chief operating officer of a medical education company that I was the fourth employee, grew to about 80 people and through a $25 million fundraise. After that, I spent 4 or 5 years really in the trenches of Web3 and NFTs and crypto and really becoming part of the community and the culture. And I think that's what really prepared me for this exciting adventure to take over marketing for OpenSea.
Was there something in particular that drew you to the community and culture? I see you've got pinball and Super Mario and Pokemon in the background. So you've always been in the gaming side. What brought you to crypto?
Yeah, I suppose if you can't tell from my background, I'm a nerdy collector of things, now both digital and physical. And so, early on, once I think I started understanding the power of NFTs and sort of infallible digital ownership of these, assets on chain. And, of course, the ability to use them for collectibles and digital art and community and membership. But also, as an entrepreneur, the just implications for so many different markets and industries of being able to digitally prove that you own things, whether that be for, gaming or tokenization of real world assets or, your online reputation. And there's just so many different incredibly exciting implications of that technology. And that got me in, I'd say, from more the business side. And then definitely, of course, from the, nerdy collectibles side, this is something I've been doing my whole life offline.
Agreed. Something definitely similar for me. Not necessarily the serial entrepreneur selling businesses to Microsoft side of things, but always been in the video games and collectibles. I've got tons of Magic the Gathering cards. I used to have a lot of Pokemon cards, and I still play those games to this day. And it was always like, how do we make this digital, and how do I prove it's mine? How could we trade it online, kind of deal? And it's cool that's being realized in this sort of day and age. In gaming as well, like the online gaming stuff, I came over to NFTs in a very I was kind of more interested in the real world utility of them. And then Axie Infinity came out and I bought a bunch and started playing the game, and boom, I understood. I was like, okay, there's an absurd amount of potential in this space. But it will probably take a little while to get there, but it seems we're there. But my concern is that I still think that most people look at NFTs as sort of overpriced JPEGs. And that's a meme. That's a common criticism. That's classic. Again, gaming sector sort of unlocked a lot of the potential, at least for that sector. And there's a sort of growing trend to hide the tech in the background. So you don't even know that you're interacting with an NFT. You don't necessarily know that you're interacting with blockchain technology. At what point will sort of non-crypto users start to feel that outside of gaming?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. So, first of all, I think it's already happening. You look at, even the app that, Pudgy Penguins put out, Pudgy Party, just a week or two ago. I don't think the average person that is playing that game or the average child that's playing that game has any understanding that the skins and items that they're earning in game can actually be minted on chain and that they have truly decentralized ownership over those assets comparatively to the skins or items that they have in many other games that are not on chain and are sitting in centralized servers in the company or game studio that developed them. I think reducing friction and reducing barriers is really important to encourage adoption. At OpenSea, we've been taking major steps to doing that. And so, you go to OpenSea today and you can transact seamlessly across 22 chains. And so that means that if you want to buy an NFT on ETH mainnet, you can do it with Solana. If you want to buy a meme coin on Solana, you can do it with ApeCoin from ApeChain. And you can do this not only across chains and across assets, but very soon you're going to be able to do it across wallets. And so, coming actually just next week, you're going to be able to connect all of your wallets together under a single profile. And coming subsequent to that, you'll be able to come and really treat OpenSea as your Web3 home. And you'll be able to come and see profiles and portfolios of all of your assets, tokens, NFTs, major crypto across all of your wallets, across all of your chains. And you're going to be able to interact incredibly seamlessly. And so, like I said, I think removing barriers and removing friction is very important as we want to see adoption from people that maybe haven't spent the last 5 years in the trenches learning how to use all these different applications and all these different wallets and about all these different chains and asset types, and really just making this simple and delightful and putting it into an easy to use, beautiful experience. That's what we're really focused on now at OpenSea.
Right, yeah, you're sort of heading into that 2.0 era, where you've announced the OpenSea to kind of deal with like a big evolution, crypto trading, cross-chain NFTs, all that good stuff. How's the sentiment been amongst sort of your, I guess, your power users, your top users? What's the response been from this evolution?
Yeah, look, sentiment is extremely high about OpenSea right now. I get messages every single day saying, "Can't believe how positive everything that you're doing is." Whether that be major announcements that we're making, whether it be rewards, incentives, whether it be the road to TGE, but most importantly, it's about the product itself. And the product itself has seen some really significant improvements. We essentially took the original platform of OpenSea, lit it on fire, started over from scratch, and built OS2. And that means that it was built with user feedback in mind. It is much snappier, much faster, much more responsive. And instead of being an NFT marketplace, it really is a home for Web3, where we are building the best place to discover, own, and trade anything on chain, and trying to, like I said earlier, make that into just a beautiful, delightful experience where people can trade across dozens and dozens of different chains, any chain, using any number of wallets, doing things with any number of different types of assets, and they can all come to one single place where all of that comes together in a cohesive way.
Would you say that sort of Web3 needed that evolution in the space? Because for a while, I would I would say that again, NFTs were considered a dead market or whatever you want to call them. All these reports coming out, 99% of NFTs are dead, and obviously a majority are because a bunch of people made a bunch of useless NFTs. It's like it's a saturated market. Of course, there's going to be 99% are useless, but you see the trading figures and the sales volumes, they're huge still. Tens of millions in a week. CryptoPunks, Spacey, and some of these other platforms that allow you to sort of tokenize your own things into NFTs are seeing like huge volumes. Where are things like going, I guess, in the next year or so? Because the trends are hard to keep up with sometimes with NFTs. Somewhat broad applications.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, first of all, to your point, NFTs definitely not dead. There was over $3 billion of trading volume in NFTs in the first 6 months of this year alone. It was up, I think, over 50% in July. And
Yes.
so, it's still a thriving market. That being said, we are focused at OpenSea on creating one single place that is the best place to trade anything on chain. And that can include NFTs, it can include major crypto, it can include meme coins, it can include tokenized assets. And so if you are coming to do more with your crypto, OpenSea is going to be your home to do that. Now, yes, where are things going over the next year? Look, we're seeing AI is a major impact on virtually every aspect of our lives, both personal and professional. OpenSea is a very deeply AI pilled organization. What I mean by that is that virtually everyone that works at OpenSea uses AI in a meaningful way as part of their daily routine. And whether that's for coding, whether that's for testing, whether that's for data analytics, finance, marketing assets, copywriting, any number of other things, we're an organization that truly understands the impact that AI has in a company's trajectory. And that is starting to now make its way into our products as well. And so we announced just a few days ago that we are building OS mobile, and that is going to be a beautiful native experience for iOS and Android where, NFTs and tokens are going to come together side by side where they're better together. And you're going to be able to do everything that we've talked about so far very seamlessly across chains, across wallets. But it's also going to be released with very deep AI integration, really natively at its core. And so we believe at OpenSea that a lot more trading over the next months and years is going to be agentic. And people are going to want AI assistance as they are making better decisions about what to trade, how to trade, what's going on chain. And so just a couple of weeks ago, we released our MCP server, which, for those that don't know, allows LLMs to now communicate in real time with the blockchain, with OpenSea data, so that you can have real conversations with AI and incorporate all of this information that's happening in real time on chain to make better trading decisions. And so back to your question about where are things going, I think removing a lot of these barriers and making sure that anybody can be onboarded very easily into crypto is very important. Making sure that you have one place that you can do everything and you can do everything in a seamless and delightful way. Making sure that you can do that both on desktop and on mobile right in your pocket, and being able to do that with deep AI integration.
So DPI integration on OpenSea wasn't something I would have had on my bingo cards for this year. You mentioned it's for trading, better decision making, things like this. Will it have a broader function?
So to start off, when we release OS Intelligence over the next couple of months, it's really going to be essentially a trading partner where you can talk to your trading partner and you can ask it all sorts of questions about what's going on, what's trending, when was the last time a hoodie crypto punk was sold. There's going to be all sorts of just data that can make its way into the kind of
It's gonna be
conversation
awesome.
that you might want to have as you're deciding what to do, what to buy, how to trade, what to do next. There's of course plenty of room for that to grow, and I don't want to start going off on a tangent and having people speculate, but there are a lot of applications where AI could be involved much more deeply into the trading experience. And, you're even starting to see AIs now that are making their own trading decisions, and where you can actually essentially talk to the LLMs about, your risk profiles and the types of things that you want to be buying and doing, and where you want to be making investments or what you want to be collecting. And then you can have these agents essentially not just providing you guidance, but even potentially performing those trades for you. And so initially, again, I don't want to overstate what it is that we're doing. OS Intelligence is going to be an agent-based trading partner that can sit alongside you in OS mobile and on OS desktop and can really connect to the blockchain and give you much better data to help you make much better decisions. But we're already starting to think about where that goes and what that evolves into, and to make sure that OpenSea is consistently viewed as a company that is leading the charge, not following. And I think what we're doing right now in terms of bringing all of these chains and wallets together and all these asset types together and creating this one central place where you can do anything on chain, that's really essential. And that was the dream of rebuilding OpenSea from the ground up and releasing OS 2. But that now gives us a platform that we can continue to build and evolve upon.
Right. Something, it speaks to sort of like there's a sort of institutional appeal to it, I guess, where becoming a sort of bedrock of digital asset collectibles, NFTs, AI agents, and having that level of information available could spur some sort of, I don't know, major institutional appeal, because you've just set up your own treasury. and that's one of the big trends in sort of crypto right now in institutions is setting up treasury companies and reserves and stacking assets for sales, purchases, future value, ecosystem participation, you name it. And you just launched the NFT flagship collection,
Hmm.
and that's very brand new. And you kicked it off with a CryptoPunk. What's for people that would genuinely look at a CryptoPunk and say, okay, it's a very expensive JPEG, it's overpriced. Why would something like this cost $1 million? Then, moreover, why would a company say, okay, we're launching a vault of value to preserve digital culture, but also serve to bolster something, right, financially or something in the market? What's going on? And a lot of people are confused, I think.
Well, I'd say the reception was extremely positive, at least within the bubble of, say, crypto Twitter and people that are paying a lot of attention to this stuff.
Yes.
For people on the outside, maybe they wouldn't quite follow or understand exactly why we're doing this, but to really explain it, look, this is our love letter to the artists and the creators and the founders that have helped build the space that we serve. And so we think it's extremely important to recognize and spotlight the collections and the art and the artists and creators that really have created the culture that is the foundation of everything that we do at OpenSea. And so, CryptoPunks, look, they're iconic. They were one of the very first generative collections. They're credited for being the first, I believe, 10,000 format collection that I would argue a lot of other major projects, Bored Ape Yacht Club, others might not exist today or exist today in the way that they do without,
Yeah.
really paying some homage to CryptoPunks and really paving the way. And so it made a lot of sense for a CryptoPunk to be the very first asset that we added to this collection to culturally preserve the Web3 culture and space that we serve. We are not building this flagship collection as a financial exercise, and so there are plenty of strategic reserves out there where they're putting assets and crypto and other things in there to really generate value and returns for investors. For us, this is much more about cultural preservation, and it's much more about being able to recognize the projects and artists and creators that helped make Web3 what it is today, and then to give new and emerging artists opportunities to be spotlighted shoulder to shoulder with some of those collections so that we can ensure that the space that we serve at OpenSea continues to thrive.
So it's more like a luxurious gallery
I
kind of
would say
thing.
that that is a better description than, say, strategic reserve. I've been talking internally about this as more of almost a museum collection, and I would love to find
Yeah.
some ways that, we can take all of these assets once it gets a little bit larger and find creative ways to display them and to, get them out into the world. And this is something that we are doing because we love Web3 culture and Web3 art, and we want to be able to recognize the artists and the creators and founders that helped make Web3 what it is today.
More to that point, yeah, I was gonna say I'm still quite surprised. I was anticipating OpenSea to get in on the whole metaverse race and like launch a little digital marketplace where you could walk around and browse NFTs. I wasn't sure if it would be a good thing or a bad thing because some of these metaverse projects have been, for better or worse, mid, average, not like wildly amazing in terms of the experience they provide. The sandbox is cool. Okay, I'm going to give the sandbox some credit because I almost spoke incorrectly there. But yeah, they are middling. It would be cool to see, I guess, this collection make its way into one of these.
Yeah, look, there's thousands of digital worlds where you can go and spend your time. Some of them, of course, are Web 2. Many of them are Web 3. You've got Decentraland, Sandbox, Other Side. I could go on and on. Um, I personally, and this is a personal belief, not necessarily an OpenSea belief, that the metaverse is going to be a thing. It's just very early right now. I think
Yeah,
more
something
and
is
more
missing,
people
right?
well, more and more people are spending more and more of their time digitally, and more people care more about their digital self in ways of presenting that. You have PFPs on Twitter, but eventually you're going to have avatars and you're going to have things that you own digitally compared to things that you own in the real world. And I do believe that 20, 30 years from now, what we view as social media will probably be taking place in what we now think of as more of a virtual metaverse, Ready Player One like world. And so, first of all, as a nerdy video game playing, digital collecting individual, that excites me. I would love
Yeah.
to see something like that where you actually have hundreds of millions, billions of people congregating, and not just playing games but just interacting and working and conducting commerce. And it's a really exciting concept. It's not something that has really taken hold yet, and I think part of that is just the technology that's involved in being able to experience that. But we're coming a long way with AR, we're coming a long way with VR, we're coming a
Yeah.
long way, to your point, with Web3, and really being able to remove some of the hurdles and things that exist that make it more difficult to own things on chain for the average person. um, OpenSea is involved in all of this, of course, because you mentioned the Sandbox or Decentraland or other side. All of those pieces of digital land, all of those items are tradable on OpenSea. And so that comes all the way back to OpenSea being viewed as your Web3 home and the single best place to discover, own, and trade anything on chain. And that can be, traditional collectibles. It can be land for metaverse worlds. It can be real world assets that are tokenized, meme coins, major crypto. All of that is coming together underneath one roof at
In
OpenSea.
that sense, then, is OpenSea Web3 collectibles infrastructure in some sense?
So I would say that there is a lot of infrastructure. And so, for example, we have Creator Studio. Any artist can come to OpenSea and immediately create very robust collections with whitelists, with metadata, refreshes, with all sorts of marketing and association with the page and merchandising. And all of that exists today on OpenSea. You can literally just go to the menu, click Studio, and it's there. We do provide a lot of infrastructure for companies and for creators and artists to do really innovative, creative things with their collections, and then have OpenSea essentially be the marketplace where all of that gets traded. We will continue to innovate along those lines and do things that support creators, that support the ecosystem, that technologically provide the foundation to do new, cool, and interesting things on chain.
So, speaking of new cool things on chain, you have a much anticipated token generation event that's supposedly around the corner. Um, Kind of similarly to my, I guess, my metaverse question, why did OpenSea wait so long to jump into the token game and launch its own? And do you see it playing any role in sort of treasury efforts, if there are any?
It's a really interesting way to phrase that question. I would say that OpenSea Foundation is going to release the OpenSea token C at the right time for it to be properly integrated into OpenSea's ecosystem. And so OpenSea had never had an intention to just release a token for the sake of releasing a token. We've seen that happen way too many times. And there are plenty of other tokens that have even been released by other marketplaces that really don't have any utility, any reason to exist other than the fact that they decided that they wanted to have a token. And at OpenSea and with the OpenSea Foundation, it's very important to us and the foundation that if OpenSea is going to have a token, that it needs to have a reason to exist. It needs to be integrated into the ecosystem. It needs to have actual utility and reasons for people to want it and to hold it and to do things with it. And I think when the foundation releases more information about C in early October, people are going to finally understand that OpenSea has been working towards this in a very meaningful and deliberate way and in a very intentional way to ensure that it has an opportunity to really be successful and not just be a meme coin to be traded and forgotten.
Yeah, because that's the obvious like big risk of it all, that they sort of become a very thin utility token within an ecosystem and offer little by way of maybe lowering fees or just being used as stake on the ecosystem to again bolster that ecosystem sort of finances in a way and bootstrap its liquidity. That can be, yeah, a little bit useless. Do you, are you able to reveal any plans for the token if there are any at the moment?
Yeah, look, I can't speak to the plans from the foundation or
Of
anything
course.
that is going to be released by them. But what we did share earlier this week is two things. One is that the foundation is going to reveal more information about the token, including timing, in early October, and that's only a few weeks away. So we're finally at a place where everybody that's been saying when token is going to get their answer, which,
Of
by
course.
the way, will make my job running marketing at OpenSea quite a bit easier. The other thing
Yeah,
that we
you jumped
announced,
into a
though,
crazy time.
the other thing that we announced on Monday, though, is the final phase of our rewards program, PTGE.
Yeah.
And what I'm just so genuinely excited about is the fact that we've committed that starting on Monday, 50% of our platform fees across OpenSea are going to be allocated to buying up NFTs and tokens and sweeping floors and creating this massive multi-million dollar rewards vault that is going to be distributed right back to users of OpenSea. And so on Monday, you're going to get a starter treasure chest. You're going to be able to power and level that up via your OpenSea activity, via voyages, via shipments. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun that month. And in the first month, the first season of this program, everything you do is going to be generating fees that we're going to be using every day to buy up your favorite projects, your favorite tokens, put them all into this, huge public, unprecedentedly massive rewards vault that will all be then opened up at the end of the month inside of these digital chests. And that's something I'm extremely, extremely excited about. And on the road to TGE, everybody that participates in this program will get a virtual treasure out of their chest, regardless of whether you find NFTs or tokens inside, that is going to be meaningfully considered by the foundation at launch.
Damn, so it's going to be a busy, busy, busy few weeks for you. And then post TGE or whenever the TGE occurs, you've got so much more to roll out. I was about to ask, are you able to give a timeline on OpenSea Intelligence?
So we plan to roll out a waitlist for OpenSea Intelligence very soon. We
Cool.
likely will allow people to use it on desktop first just to get feedback and really reevaluate our approach. And then the plan is to incorporate it into our initial mobile launch, which will also actually be coming relatively soon, coming up in the next couple of months.
Okay, cool. And I guess before we say goodbye and sign off, you've already told us so much about so many cool things that are happening, but is there anything else that's lined up for 2025, 2026 that you can share with us?
We've got plenty of things that are lined up, but nothing else that I could share today.
Damn. All right. Well, next time then I'll have to try again next time. Let's catch up maybe post TGE, maybe
We'd love
closer to
that.
Christmas if you're not too busy and see how things have gone then.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.